reached the very end of the show, but I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to stay tuned for all of the different trading time
my hand on the plow. No weapon formed against me is gonna prosper. I need God to refill my cup. This is what I did. I went down to the fountain and my soul got another dip. I went down to the fountain. Yes, I got another dip. Like the woman at the well, searching and searching, looking for something that would satisfy. I went down to the altar, I stayed right there. I knew that the Lord would answer my prayer. So like Jacob, I wrestled and wrestled some more. I wouldn't let go until God blessed my soul. My feet got light, I began to run. I knew that my deliverance had come. I got happy down at the fountain, and my soul got another dip. I got happy down at the fountain. Yes, I got another dip. Fill my cup, Lord. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Fill my cup, Lord. Fill my cup, Lord. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Jesus met me at the fountain, and my soul got another dip. He met me and he blessed me down at the fountain. Yes, I got another dip. Fill my cup, Lord. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Fill my cup, Lord. Yeah, 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 yeah. Jesus met me at the fountain, and my soul got another dip. He met me and he blessed me down at the fountain. Yes, I got another dip. I found love at the fountain. I found peace at the fountain. I found
Big factor in terms of getting it right. We realize up front that it's a huge responsibility for us as a sport, but I'm also confident in the group we've gathered to put this plan together, and our entire industry has come together to believe in the plan we've put together. We're certainly going to learn as we go, but the process that we put in place, I think, gives the industry the confidence that we can be first, and then we can do this in Darlington.
NASCAR will implement a detailed plan that features social distancing and includes races without spectators. For more on this story, visit mrn.com.
Hello and welcome to a BBB Communications special edition news coverage on the coronavirus here in Tennessee. We are honored to have with us our congressman from the 3rd District, Chuck Fleischmann. Congressman, thank you for being with us.
Chad, it's great to be with you always, sir.
Absolutely, and Congressman Fleischmann, a friend of the show, and of course the ranking member on the House Homeland Security Committee, also on the Appropriations Committee, which the Energy and Water Subcommittee is so important to us here in the district. Congressman, I want to start by thanking you for your service to the district. It means a lot to us. And before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors, Protective Strategies Incorporated. They're one of the leading specialists in security based out of Oak Ridge here. They do so much great work for us, so we want to thank them. And along with another sponsor, Liz's Wine and Spirits, small business in the area. We want to thank them. Without them, we could not do this. So having said that, we want to get right to it. We've got a lot of questions, Congressman. This is an issue on every American's mind and everyone in the district. Getting right to it, starting big picture, if you could describe for us where the country is at, not just Tennessee, but the country is at in the fight against COVID-19.
It's ongoing, Chad. I'm glad you asked me that question. There's two parts to this. Obviously, the healthcare pandemic that has engulfed the world and really has affected all 50 states in the United States. Thankfully, in Tennessee, we've not been as impacted as deeply as some of the other states, such as New York and Washington State and Illinois, but we have been affected. And then, of course, the economic devastation that has taken place as a result of this. If you can think about this, just a couple of months ago, we were talking about the largest unprecedented economic boom really in American history. Unemployment was at an all-time low, capital was flowing, all economic indicators, the markets, everything was up, and it collapsed because of the coronavirus. So this pandemic has been both a health crisis, an economic crisis, but we are in a far better position today than we were a month ago, and let's hope a month from now we're in a better position.
And bringing it back to the state level, roughly around 10,000, 11,000 cases, I guess, today. We've not got the new numbers, and around 200 deaths. Can you describe for our viewing audience how we're doing here in Tennessee? Obviously not as bad as some places, but your take on what's going on here in the district.
That's correct. Around the country, we have certain hotspots, obviously New York City and the like, but Tennessee is a very large state. Certain cities, such as Nashville, have had much more of a problem than cities such as Chattanooga or Knoxville. We're very fortunate that because of the social distancing and because of the measures that the very smart and astute citizenry of the people of Tennessee have taken, that we have not seen a tremendous spike. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to anyone who's been affected, those who have passed away, those who are still suffering from the illness. But by and large, Tennessee, we're doing much, much better than the rest of the nation. And thank goodness we are opening up now. So we're going to see that economic vibrancy hopefully return not only to the 3rd District of Tennessee, but throughout the state.
And that's an excellent segue to my next question. As you know, this week, Governor Lee's Tennessee Pledge went into effect, allowing restaurants, retail to open up in some capacity. Do you support the governor's pledge on that? And with so many of our viewers working in this capacity, how do you think this is going to go for the district?
Another great question. Yes, I do applaud Governor Lee for the way that he is handling this crisis. It is something that right now it's a very difficult time to be a president. I think Donald Trump has done a great job. It's a tough time to be an executive. It's a tough time to be a mayor. It's a tough time to be a governor. And yes, difficult decisions, many times lose-lose decisions. If you open up, you get criticized. If you close down, you get criticized. By and large, I want to see our state open, working hard again, getting that economic vibrancy back in Tennessee. Fortunately, our state, unlike many of the other states, is fiscally sound. What I mean by that is we balance our budget every year. We have a rainy day fund that has money in it. We don't have debt as a state. Some of these other states that are upside down economically, like Illinois, California, New York, they can't dig out from this crisis because they have been physically insolvent. They've been unsound for quite some time. It hurts them worse than it does Tennessee. So I give all of our state and local governments high marks for the way that they have handled this crisis.
And I want to go back to that in a little bit, because now we're starting to see some of these states possibly asking for a bailout from Congress. So I do want to get back to that.
Sure.
As far as testing goes, everyone says that testing, all the public health experts say testing is the key to getting this behind us, or one of the keys.
Sure.
How is Tennessee doing in our testing capacity right now as we speak?
Exceedingly well. Tennessee is probably at the forefront, leading most states. Tennesseans who want to test will get a test. But Chad, I'm glad you talked about testing. Back in February, I went to Omaha, Nebraska, and I met with infectious disease doctors who told us that this was potentially going to be a problem. What they were doing in Omaha is they were taking that first group of patients who were coronavirus patients who were on cruise ships, and they were actually taking them in, treating them, and releasing those who were well, but monitoring them. And at that point in time, the big concern was testing, testing, testing. What's gone wrong? Early in the game, we were having a situation where the testing was inaccurate. What I mean by that was false positives and false negatives. And that was very dangerous. Right now, the tests are much better. They're much more accurate. And in Tennessee, we've done a great job. But the United States is doing a very good job getting out more testing capacity. If this coronavirus comes back in the fall and winter, and I can only rely on the experts with whom I've spoken. And what I mean by that, Chad, I said I wanted my answers to come from doctors and scientists and not politicians on this. I've talked with the top infectious disease doctors. There's a very good chance that coronavirus will come back in the fall or winter. If it does, we've got to make sure that we're prepared to test and test accurately, and I think we are.
And one follow-up question on testing. When this first rolled out, some folks were having to wait, a week, more than a week to get results, then several days. Now that there's tests that the president was talking about 15 minutes for results, do you suspect that testing will continue to get better as far as the amount of time people have to wait for results, like in the fall if this does come back?
Yes, the testing capacity and efficiency has really markedly increased. And I will also say, at a time when we're looking at close to worldwide 100 vaccines being experimented with to see if they can cure this virus. Right now, it's a little bit hit or miss. That's how the experts say the process works. Fortunately, we're being very aggressive on the testing front, not only more tests, but more efficient tests, and of course, working on a vaccine that hopefully will ultimately cure this virus.
You did a great Facebook sort of town hall style meeting yesterday, and you were getting a lot of questions on, well, you spoke of really the American people facing two crises right now, public health crisis and economic crisis. I want to get into the economics of this. Congress has passed several packages, I believe 4 bills at this point.
That's correct.
Of aid to the American people. And you were a yes vote on all those 4 packages, if I understand correctly.
That is correct.
Can you please give our viewers an overview of what Congress has done so far to help them throughout this difficult time?
Another excellent question. When we were faced with this crisis, whether you're in the House, the Senate, or the White House, this was unprecedented. We knew it was bad. We knew it was bad on the health side. We didn't know where it was going to be as bad as it was going to be. New York, we got early reports from Washington State that it was bad there. We have since found out that the coronavirus was actually here before very, very early February or late January, as opposed to when we thought it came later in February. But we had to act. And what we basically did was a twofold approach, dealing with the healthcare crisis, getting dollars out for testing, for hospitals. Think about the hospital models, where they knew the vast majority of coronavirus patients at a time where they were going to not be having elective surgeries, these hospitals were going to suffer because we had a lot of Medicare and Medicaid patients. We had to get dollars out to hospitals, to healthcare to deal with that. And by and large, we did that in 2 of the 4 bills. The first time was $100 billion, the next time another $100 billion. That has helped alleviate that. So the whole healthcare side of that, treatment, ventilators, and all of that. The next part of that was dealing with a situation where the American worker, who was doing so well, low unemployment, making good wages, all of a sudden that went away. What that meant was we wanted to incentivize employers to keep their employees. And how do we do that? We did that largely with the second and third bills, which had money for what we call the PPP, the Payment Protection Program, which allowed businesses to keep their employees, pay their overhead for the short term to weather this storm. If we had not done this, and these were expensive packages, but if we had not done this, we are in a process right now in a state where we need help with the economy. It is not good, it is not strong, but we would have been so much weaker, we could have, in my view, faced a complete collapse. So the actions on behalf of President Trump and Vice President Pence, our administration, I think have been exemplary, the House and the Senate. And when you think about this, at a time where we have hyper-partisanship, Republicans and Democrats not getting along, the bills that were passed, these 4 bills that were passed, were overwhelmingly bipartisan, some of them unanimous, meaning 100%, others very close to that. That speaks well for our republic, and that speaks well for the fact that people who are in public office, whether in the House like myself or in the Senate or in the White House, care about the American people, care about the American worker, care about the American entrepreneur, and want to get us back on track.
And I want to do one more question before we have to go to commercial. You spoke of those bills, and they did do a whole lot of good, but could you speak about where they may have fallen short? I know yesterday on the town hall, you mentioned possible restaurants, some things that you're looking at. No bill can be perfect, but where did those fall short?
An excellent question. Hospitality and restaurants. Let's take the restaurants at first. The way that the PPP was set up is 75% of those dollars had to go towards employees, towards payroll. Well, think about it. The government forced these restaurateurs to close. Okay, so they lose their customers. Many of their employees left and then went home and then were receiving actually unemployment, what I would call unemployment plus, because they were getting that additional $600, which was part of that third plan. So they had no customers, the restaurants, so they could not use those dollars effectively. So the result was that the aid package for the vast majority of the restaurateurs just missed the mark and didn't help them. Another industry that has really reached out for help, hospitality. Think about this, our hotels and motels, which were booming in cities like Chattanooga, right here in Oak Ridge, doing a great job all across the United States, running at about 8 to 10% occupancy. And what do they have? They have not only payroll, but they have mortgage payments. They have payments to their financiers. They got relief with their banks many times, but so much of their portfolio is not financed by banks anymore. It's financed by other private financiers who have no flexibility in their loan documents to give forbearance. So that problem is still out there. We still have to work on that. But again, the key is going to be get America back to work, traveling, healthy, happy, spending money, and this way we will see our hotels full again, but it's going to take some time, and I want to see our restaurants full again. I just recently drove through Oak Ridge. A couple of restaurants are open for dine-in. Did that over in Knoxville a little bit earlier, actually dined in. I want to encourage everybody, when you feel comfortable, and I feel comfortable right now, get into our restaurants, support our local restaurateurs, eat out more often, and help them get through this.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to talk after the commercial break about some more possible aid packages coming to the American people, the American businesses, owners. We're going to go to a commercial break. I want to again thank our sponsors, Protective Services Incorporated and Liz's Wine and Spirits. We appreciate you. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Curbside walk-up table. This provides an extra level of security for both you and our employees. Just tell us what you want and one of our friendly staff will bring it out to you. We're open 7 days a week and conveniently located across from Kroger at 1505 Oak Ridge Turnpike.
Coronavirus is changing the way we live our lives, but seriously injured people still need our help. At OEB, we're committed to helping you no matter what. So, we've introduced a system where we can take care of your case almost completely electronically. You don't have to leave your home for us to start helping you. All you have to do is call. The future may feel uncertain, but we can get through it together. If you're injured, you still deserve justice. Call 546-1111. Call right now.
Muncie Pharmacy is your locally owned hometown pharmacy. They accept most insurances, so why go to the large chain pharmacies when you get better customer service at Muncie Pharmacy? Have a special prescription that needs compounding? Muncie Pharmacy can handle those needs as well. Muncie Pharmacy has a drive-through for your convenience and offers free delivery in the Oak Ridge area. And don't forget the gifts that we have available for all occasions.
Here at Muncie Pharmacy, we take the time to know you and treat you like family.
We treat you like family at RMG. Bring your junk, cars, aluminum cans. We'll buy it on the spot and we'll pay you a lot. We treat you like family at RMG. Yeah, we treat you like family at RMG. We treat you like family.
Rome Metals is located just off of Highway 27 between Herman and Rockwood.
Hey, it's Jack Ryan. Listeners are always wanting more music. So guess who it is that's giving it to you? We now have hour-long commercial-free playlists all day long. Over an hour of back-to-back songs and zero commercials on 96.7 Merle.
For over 50 years, Liz's Wine and Spirits has been serving the community of Oak Ridge, and we want you to know that we are here for you through this difficult time. You can still enjoy all your favorite premium spirits, cigars, and wine at our new curbside walk-up table. This provides an extra level of security for both you and our employees. Just tell us what you want, and one of our friendly staff will bring it out to you. We're open 7 days a week and conveniently located across from Kroger at 1505 Oak Ridge Turnpike.
Coronavirus is changing the way we live our lives, but seriously injured people still need our help. At OEB, we're committed to helping you no matter what. So, we've introduced a system where we can take care of your case almost completely electronically. You don't have to leave your home for us to start helping you. All you have to do is call. The future may feel uncertain, but we can get through it together. If you're injured, you still deserve justice. Call 546-1111. Call right now.
Muncie Pharmacy is your locally owned hometown pharmacy. They accept most insurances, so why go to the large chain pharmacies when you get better customer service at Muncie Pharmacy? Have a special prescription that needs compounding? Muncie Pharmacy can handle those needs as well. Muncie Pharmacy has a drive-through for your convenience and offers free delivery in the Oak Ridge area. And don't forget the gifts that we have available for all occasions.
Here at Muncie Pharmacy, we take the time to know you and treat you like family.
We treat you like family at RMG. Bring your junk, cars, aluminum cans. We'll buy it on the spot and we'll pay you a lot. We treat you like family at RMG. Yeah, we treat you like family at RMG. We treat you like family.
Rome Metals is located just off of Highway 27 between Herman and Rockwood.
Hey, it's Jack Ryan. Listeners are always wanting more music. So guess who it is that's giving it to you? We now have hour-long commercial-free playlists all day long. Over an hour of back-to-back songs and zero commercials on 96.7 Merle.
Welcome back to our coronavirus special update here at BBB Communications. Our guest, Congressman Chuck Fleischmann. Getting back to our conversation, Congressman, there is further talk about possible additional relief bills for the American people, the American worker. Can you talk about what's being discussed, proposed, if anything, for the American people?
Another great question, Chad. Obviously, we have passed 4 bills, and we are waiting to see the effects of these bills. Getting dollars in the hands of the American people, including our senior citizens who are so dear to my heart, those with disabilities as well, all got checks, which was a good thing. We wanted to make sure that the American people had money in their pockets at this time to pay for their necessities as we went through this very difficult economic time. This next package that we will look at, which would be the 5th bill, it's really up in the air. Some people have asked for an infrastructure component. What I mean by that is roads and bridges and locks and airports. As you know, I'm a big supporter of having an airport right here in Oak Ridge. I think we need one, and I would like to see us get one. And we're working towards trying to get one funded. But an infrastructure package may be part of that. The next thing is whether or not there will be a need for additional monies for states and cities. One of our packages, the third one, provided money for the states and the larger cities. The great state of Tennessee receives about $3.6 billion out of that, give or take a few. And that was very important to get that money to Governor Lee. I speak with the governor every week, speak with our state leaders every week. As you know, we write up with Randy McNally is our great lieutenant governor here. Bo Watson down in my part of the world is chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. They're going to have some major budget shortfalls in our great state. So if there's a part of this program that has money for the states, I want to make absolutely certain that the great state of Tennessee, our home state, gets its fair share.
That's very good to hear. And I wanted to kind of ask you a philosophical question that a lot of folks are talking about on the street when you go out and visit with people. This idea that we've had 11,000 cases here, around 200 deaths. Obviously, every death is a tragedy, but a lot of folks sort of following up on what the president said, that the cure cannot be worse than the disease.
Sure.
The enormous cost to the American people, and the sacrifice everyone has felt. Do you think that, what would you say to people that ask, has the cure been worse than the disease?
I've had a lot of those phone calls. From the inception, people have said, Congressman, please, please, please talk to the state officials where these decisions ultimately rest for opening up the state. Get us open. A lot of the hairdressers and the barbers and restaurateurs, please get us open. And I understand that. It's a balancing act. And we've got, I think now, we can safely reopen. I dined in today, and I will dine in today, later today as well. The restaurants are not quite full yet, and many haven't opened. I want to see them open, but when they open, they're going to need customers, and we want them to be full again, have people eat, drink, and be merry, and spend money and tip well. Please tip your waiter and waitress, because they work so hard, and they've struggled so much. But I think it's high time we open. I fully empathize with those calls that we've been getting for weeks. Open us up, let's get us back to work, because we have to at some point in time. Having said that, I could never fault anybody for saying that we needed to be shut down for a while, because this is a terrible way to die. And in the larger cities where we had major spike ups and are still seeing major deaths, I think Boston is going through an experience right now. I know Washington, D.C. as well, where I serve. I just went back last week. It was like a ghost town. And they've had a lot more deaths there. A balancing act, and we just have got to get it right, and I think we will.
And you're confident that the American people had not taken these measures, we would have seen those surges in the hospitals?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
It would have been terrible.
Especially early on, no question. Because this is very contagious. It is much more contagious than a normal cold or flu. I got that information from the experts, and it's a terrible way to die. Apparently, the respiratory side of it is very, very bad. Fortunately, the president worked very hard to make sure that American manufacturing geared up so that we would have sufficient ventilators. Now, these ventilators, nobody who needed a ventilator went without one, which was great.
It's
a great testament to American manufacturing, American ingenuity, and good work on the part of the president. Having said that, many people who got to the respirator stage did not make it. That was sad.
I want to kind of shift toward a historical view of this. It's probably too soon to start writing the history on this, as we're still involved in it, but this has been the major event of my lifetime, along with September 11th. I think a lot of books will be written on this. It's just an absolute historical time that we're living in. So with that paradigm, when was this the coronavirus, something that got on Congress's radar? When did you all start looking at this and thinking this may be a problem? We saw the early reports out of China in January.
Yes.
I know impeachment was going on, and I have a question about that in a moment, but
sure.
If you could kind of enlighten us.
Well, obviously the Chinese were less than forthcoming about the virus, the magnitude of the virus, their internal problems and sufferings, and very disappointing that the World Health Organization, the WHO, was not as forthright and alarming to the world as they should have been based on the data that was coming out of China. This virus came out of China. The problem with that is it came out of a communist country that has a very tightly control over people's freedoms, over their media, and they just do not disseminate information like we would in a free and open country in the United States or the democracies of the West. The fact that that was delayed, or if you will, covered up, gave us a situation that we really didn't get it on our radars until probably about mid-February. By the time it showed up, it was in crisis mode. The world was engulfed by this pandemic on the healthcare side. Obviously, those countries such as Italy, Spain, immediately were suffering the economic effects. I speak with world leaders, I speak with economic leaders. I have a friend in Egypt. Their tourism industry, just gone, non-existent. And this is an industry or a country that relies so heavily on tourism. I've actually been there and seen the pyramids in the Valley of the Kings and traveled over there to meet with their leaders. But right now, tourism is dead. So it took a while for us to realize that it was coming. When it got here, we acted, I think, with proper haste. And I give high marks to President Trump and Vice President Pence, the Senate and the House, for getting these packages out to the American people and acting as swiftly as we did.
I've got one more question before we go to break along this same line of historical thinking. What can you tell your constituents about the origins of this virus? We were originally told it happened naturally at one of these wet markets. Now there's some talk that it perhaps escaped from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I can't say that word. But it doesn't appear to be man-made, but it could have been an escape. I know Senator Tom Cotton's been at the forefront of this issue, asking a lot of tough questions. What can you tell your constituents about what we know right now about where this came from?
It's a very fair question. Right now we are in a discovery phase. We are trying to get information out of the People's Republic of China, which is very difficult. They have not been as forthright, as straightforward as really they should have been, and really I think they owe the world an explanation for what happened. It came out of Wuhan. We know that. That's as much as we know. We also know that initially China kept their numbers lower than they actually were, not only in terms of the infection rate, but also in terms of the death rate. And that was a problem. Give President Trump high marks. When he curtailed and stopped the flights to China, to and from, and to Europe, he was criticized. Some on the left called him a xenophobe and the like. In retrospect, he was absolutely right. No question it would have been much worse if he had not done this.
We have a lot more with Congressman Chuck Fleischmann after this commercial break. Again, want to thank our sponsors, Veteran-Owned Protective Services Incorporated. Please check them out on the web. And Liz's Wine and Spirits, our friend Aaron Wells. That's a business that is going above and beyond, trying to keep you safe with curbside walk-up. Small business right here in Oak Ridge. Please check them out as well. We'll be right back after this commercial break with the Congressman.
For over 50 years, Liz's Wine and Spirits has been serving the community of Oak Ridge, and we want you to know that we are here for you through this difficult time. You can still enjoy all your favorite premium spirits, cigars, and wine at our new curbside walk-up table. This provides an extra level of security for both you and our employees. Just tell us what you want, and one of our friendly staff will bring it out to you. We're open 7 days a week and conveniently located across from Kroger at 1505 Oak Ridge Turnpike.
Coronavirus is changing the way we live our lives, but seriously injured people still need our help. At OEB, we're committed to helping you no matter what. So, we've introduced a system where we can take care of your case almost completely electronically. You don't have to leave your home for us to start helping you. All you have to do is call. The future may feel uncertain, but we can get through it together. If you're injured, you still deserve justice. Call 546-1111. Call right now.
Muncie Pharmacy is your locally owned hometown pharmacy. They accept most insurances, so why go to the large chain pharmacies when you get better customer service at Muncie Pharmacy? Have a special prescription that needs compounding? Muncie Pharmacy can handle those needs as well. Muncie Pharmacy has a drive-through for your convenience and offers free delivery in the Oak Ridge area. And don't forget the gifts that we have available for all occasions.
Here at Muncie Pharmacy, we take the time to know you and treat you like family.
We treat you like family at RMG. Bring your junk, cars, aluminum cans. We buy it on the spot and we pay you a lot. We treat you like family at RMG. Yeah, we treat you like family at RMG. We treat you like family.
Rome Metals is located just off of Highway 27 between Herman and Rockwood.
Hey, it's Jack Ryan. Listeners are always wanting more music. So guess who it is that's giving it to you? We now have hour-long commercial-free playlists all day long. Over an hour of back-to-back songs and 0 commercials on 96.7 Merle.
Welcome back to the BBB Communications Coronavirus Special Update with Congressman Chuck Fleischmann, brought to you by Protective Strategies Incorporated and Liz's Wine and Spirits. Let's get right to it. A question on a lot of your constituents' mind has to do with the food supply chain. I know you mentioned yesterday you had a call with some folks in that industry. Is our food supply safe for the average American?
Yes, there are going to be some interruptions, but fortunately, again, the president invoked his federal statutory powers to ensure that our food chain will be kept safe. Let's talk about this. This was an area, and Chad, during this time, I'm spending hour after hour, day after day, helping people with their problems. In addition to this, though, when I can avail myself of the expertise of people who know more about certain subjects, whether it's medicine, finance, food supply chain, I am privy to this information, so I get these briefings. I think it's very important that I get those because I learn a lot, and then I can be a much more effective legislator for my constituents. I delved into this food chain supply issue because I heard some very sad news. And what that sad news was that in the poultry area, turkeys and chickens and pork in particular, that the way that the farmers were raising these animals they were on a timetable from birth to growth to when they would show up at a slaughterhouse. What was happening was many of these meat packing plants, understandably, were closed down to coronavirus. The president, fortunately, now has opened them up as essential businesses. Why is that so important? And they explained it to me yesterday in great detail. These animals, if they show up and there's not a way for them to be slaughtered, it will back up literally in the system, ultimately resulting, sadly, and this is what really bothered me, is that farmers will actually have to euthanize their hogs. These people raise these for the food chain, for the American people, for a living, and to actually have to euthanize them, so there's a profit loss there, it's a waste
It's a terrible
issue.
situation.
It is a lose-lose situation at a time when many Americans are still hungry and showing up at food banks. So thank goodness the president has opened up these meat packing plants. Interestingly enough, I found out that beef cattle gets a reprieve from that. Not total, but they don't fall under the same stringent controls or constraints that poultry and pork did. But we want to make sure that the food supply chain remains open, that the great truck drivers in this country are moving our goods all across the country, doing an outstanding job stepping up. So yes, the food supply chain is going to be safe. If we see some shortages, they should just be intermittent, but we should be fine.
Along the same lines, our medical supply chain.
Yes.
We were speaking earlier about the Chinese Communist Party's deception in the early stages of this pandemic. One of the things that I've learned throughout this is our reliance on China for our medical supplies, where so many of the raw ingredients are manufactured there. Is this something that Congress is going to take a look at, perhaps trying to make us a little bit more independent from China's grasp on so many of these goods?
The answer is a good, strong affirmative yes. Again, this is what President Trump ran on, and a lot of people, Republicans and Democrats, many times question the fact that why was he so concerned that we had outsourced so much of our manufacturing base to China and other countries. And he had made tremendous progress, the administration did, with some of its trade deals. But this really exposed our Achilles heel in two ways. In terms of manufacturing, we've got to look at pharmaceuticals, many of which, basic antibiotics, which are now made in China, in addition to other drugs, plus manufactured goods. Some of this we will be able to bring back to America very rapidly. Some of it because we have depleted our manufacturing base so long over the past couple of decades for largely inexpensive labor in other countries, particularly China. It's going to take a while to get back that base. So the answer is yes. I've seen a lot of talk, not only between Republicans and Democrats, but House members and Senate members, of how are we going to re-incentivize American manufacturing. I will say this, the tax bill that we passed in the last Congress and President Trump signed, reducing the corporate income tax rate from 35% to a rate where we are much, much more competitive, in the very low 20s, or either I think 20 or 21%, I think we dropped it down to, is going to be a big, big start. We were literally driving American business out of this country because of our tax structure. That has been fixed, but now we've got to really re-incentivize manufacturing in this country, and we can do it.
In terms of looking at things and perhaps changing the way we do business, with the World Health Organization, is that something that Congress also is going to look at as far as subsidizing that with tax dollars, seeing as how they've been less than forthcoming about certain things? I know they waited forever to even call this a pandemic and certain allegiances to China. What is the Republican caucus's view toward the WHO at this point?
I think a lot of Americans, not only Republicans, are very critical of the WHO in the way that they handled this pandemic, and rightfully so. This was something that, with their expertise and their knowledge, alarms should have gone off earlier. I do not know why they seem to pander to the People's Republic of China. They should have called them out early for the good of world health. That's why they're there. The concern is, and rightfully so, we, the American people, the American taxpayer, have funded the WHO for quite some time, and there are a lot of unanswered questions, and they did not, in my view, handle this properly on behalf of the world.
I think that is the feeling among many of your constituents here. I want to talk about how this process, seemingly to us at the district, perhaps came politicized when the negotiations were going on. We heard of Democrats possibly trying to put in a wish list and some of these relief bills. You have a reputation as being very bipartisan, willing to work with anybody for the people in your district. But we felt like that was going on based on some of the reports. Can you speak to that? Was that what was happening?
Well, the third bill was particularly disturbing, and yes, I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I'm an appropriator, and what that means is Tennessee has 9 members in the United States House of Representatives. I am the only appropriator, Republican or Democratic, and I'm a Republican. But what that means is I serve on the committees that fund the key things like Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Y-12, the UPF, our great nuclear cleanup mission here, the Chickamauga Lock, defense, anything that is on the discretionary side of the budget, we fund through the appropriations process, and that goes through me as the member in Tennessee. What bothered me greatly was we should have passed that third bill earlier, and we had a situation, and I'll give a specific example, in the middle of a coronavirus relief bill where hospitals, cities and states, the American workers, the American entrepreneur needed funding. We had a situation, Chad, where the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, fought for getting $25 million for the Kennedy Center. Had nothing to do with coronavirus. The day after she did it, the Kennedy Center furloughed its workers.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous. There were a few of these instances. These bills should not be Christmas tree bills where we attach everything to them. That was not the purpose of these emergency bills. I will say this of the fourth bill. In the fourth bill, we replenished the PPP program with money not only for the big banks, but for community banks, very important. Right here in Anderson and Rowan County, we've got a lot of great community banks as well, doing a great job. So we did that. We funded the hospitals, and we got $25 billion for critical testing. So that fourth bill was largely stripped of all the pork that was in some of these other bills. That was a good thing. Let's hope going forward that we can put together bills that are rock solid, that are not filled with special interests, because this is not the time for that. This is the time to fight the coronavirus on the health side and to help the economy on the economic side.
And I think we have time for one more question before our commercial break. One of the most amazing things about your job as a member of Congress is all the people you get to meet with in the private sector, these businesses on the cutting edge. Could you talk about the role the private sector has played in this and the amazing ingenuity of it as far as combating this virus and the folks you've got to talk to and meet with? Whether it's people donating other resources to make hand sanitizer or masks, just the amazing ingenuity of the American people.
It's incredible, and this is why we do have and why we need to make sure that our manufacturing and distribution sectors remain strong. Many companies totally changed the way that they operated and manufactured. Some did that under the compulsion of the federal statute with ventilators, such as GM, and I applaud them. They did a great job. Others did it voluntarily. We needed masks. We needed gowns. A tremendous shortage. Many companies very swiftly moved over to manufacturing these things. So yes, the American entrepreneur stood up and basically heard the clarion call for help. And as we did in World War II, as we've done in other times in our history, stepped up and did the right thing and met the needs. So hardworking Americans, not only on the front lines, our healthcare workers, our truck drivers. We've seen a lot of heroes in this country working hard. It just shows that the American worker, given a level playing field, can and will beat anybody in the world. And the American entrepreneur will always figure out a way to get it done and get it right. Many times, if the government could just get out of the way and leave him and her alone, it'd be a lot better.
Absolutely. And we're going to go to our last commercial break. We do have a lot more to get to in our final segment. Also want to ask you about the horrific tornadoes in Hamilton County.
Yes.
We've got a lot to get with. Do want to thank our sponsors, PSI and Liz's Wine and Spirits. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
For over 50 years, Liz's Wine and Spirits has been serving the community of Oak Ridge, and we want you to know that we are here for you through this difficult time. You can still enjoy all your favorite premium spirits, cigars, and wine at our new curbside walk-up table. This provides an extra level of security for both you and our employees. Just tell us what you want, and one of our friendly staff will bring it out to you. We're open 7 days a week and conveniently located across from Kroger at 1505 Oak Ridge Turnpike.
Coronavirus is changing the way we live our lives, but seriously injured people still need our help. At OEB, we're committed to helping you no matter what. So, we've introduced a system where we can take care of your case almost completely electronically. You don't have to leave your home for us to start helping you. All you have to do is call. The future may feel uncertain, but we can get through it together. If you're injured, you still deserve justice. Call 546-1111. Call right now.
Muncie Pharmacy is your locally owned hometown pharmacy. They accept most insurances, so why go to the large chain pharmacies when you get better customer service at Muncie Pharmacy? Have a special prescription that needs compounding? Muncie Pharmacy can handle those needs as well. Muncie Pharmacy has a drive-through for your convenience and offers free delivery in the Oak Ridge area. And don't forget the gifts that we have available for all occasions.
Here at Muncie Pharmacy, we take the time to know you and treat you like family.
We treat you like family at RMG. Bring your junk, cars, aluminum cans. We'll buy it on the spot and we'll pay you a lot. We treat you like family at RMG. Yeah, we treat you like family at RMG. We treat you like family
Rome Metals is located just off of Highway 27 between Herman and Rockwood.
Hey, it's Jack Ryan. Listeners are always wanting more music. So guess who it is that's giving it to you? We now have hour-long commercial-free playlists all day long. Over an hour of back-to-back songs and zero commercials on 96.7 Merle.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Coronavirus Special Report at BBB Communications. We've been blessed to have Congressman Chuck Fleischmann with us for the hour, answering questions that are on a lot of your minds here in the 3rd District, and of course our great sponsors PSI and Liz's. Getting right back to the conversation, final block, a lot to get to. Vice President Pence said that he thinks by Memorial Day the pandemic could be behind us in some capacity. My question with that context is, where are we headed over the next couple months, dare say the next couple of years? What do things look like in this country?
On the healthcare side of this, we do expect to see the spike come and go and see the cases either disappear or be greatly reduced. This is what the experts are telling me when the warmer weather gets here. The big unknown question is, will COVID-19 come back in the fall or winter months? And I think most importantly, will it come back with a flu season running concurrently? That would be a double whammy that would be extremely difficult, because as we know, every year we lose thousands of Americans to a flu. So we've got to monitor that. And over the next year or so, we hope to get a vaccine to deal with COVID that would potentially be a cure. There are over 100 trials going on right now globally. So let's hope we get that. But still, there's a lot of unknowns.
Some great news, not to interrupt, but some great news this week on remdesivir.
Absolutely.
So there are some breakthroughs happening on medicine.
We've seen some promising existing drugs with some good results, absolutely. And sometimes that's trial and error. But having said that, on the economic side, and this is where we have to be very careful. I've spoken with our state leaders and our local leaders. Our state has a budget. We balance our budget by constitutional amendment in our great state of Tennessee, and we are dependent on sales tax revenues. So at a time when revenues drop, expenses go up, and that's why it's so important that we in the federal government help the great state of Tennessee, and we will get to where we need to be. But it's going to be a time where we have to be very fiscally responsible, very careful about the dollars that we spend, and to make sure that we use them well. Tennessee does have a rainy day fund, because when times were good, we didn't waste our surplus, we saved our surplus. But we're going to have to watch that. And this is going to be something, Chad, that takes probably 2 or 3 years to get through, hopefully, if we don't get a major recurrence of this event.
One last question along those lines, as far as your conversations with public health experts. Yep. Can you tell our viewers anything about this idea that we've been talking about a long time, that possibly this could subside in the summer with warmer temperatures? Is that still a possibility they're thinking, or has the modeling changed?
Very much so. That's what we are hearing, that apparently this virus is not only sensitive to heat, but is destroyed by heat. So yes, that is one of the hopes. But the real concern that we have heard from Dr. Fauci and others is that it may in fact come back.
Okay. And we were talking about what things look like moving forward. Something on a lot of our viewers' minds is, are we going to have football this fall, do you think? Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, as you know, Chad, I love the Big Orange. I bleed orange.
You're a longtime fan. I know it was on your mind, too.
That is my alma mater. Started law school there when I was 20 years old, actually. I spoke with Randy Boyd, the president of the University of Tennessee, 2 days ago. This decision will be made by the SEC. Okay, for all the SEC schools. Let's hope that we can keep our football season. That is not only important to great fans such as myself and yourself who want to see the Big Orange and whatever your favorite team play college football, but it's also important for the economic vibrancy of our state in areas such as Knox County and Knoxville, where we fill up Neyland Stadium several times a year, and people come in, stay in hotels, spend money, enjoy watching the Big Orange win, I hope. And it's just great for us. We look forward to football season, to basketball season. Myself, I'm still a baseball player. I'm hoping we get the congressional baseball game in. So I'm still staying in shape. I don't know how many years I've got left, but
sure.
we're hanging in. I'm an optimist.
Along those same lines, I wanted to ask you a personal question as far as how has this changed the way that you do your work in Congress. There's obviously social distancing and the way you operate out in the district. I imagine every time I saw you before this, you were always out there with everyone. I've never seen somebody with so much energy visiting constituents. This has got to be a little bit different for you personally.
It's very different. I love the people. I love the people of the great state of Tennessee and Washington, D.C. I like to be out with the tourists and just visit with Americans who come in to see our great capital. It has changed it markedly. The way that we vote right now, the well of the House has actually gone. Normally I speak on the well of the House. We've had a situation when we vote now that we actually have to vote in groups. Typically we would come to the floor, meet with everybody, talk during votes. Now we come in literally and we are herded in through one door, you vote and you go out another door. So there's been a marked change in the way that we conduct business. Typically this time of year, I am meeting with throngs of constituents who come up to see me from all across our great state, actually all across the country, to discuss the issues that are important. It might be education, it might be healthcare, it might be banking, it might be manufacturing. That is not happening. We're doing a lot more telephonically, but I will say this. I've worked hard every day. Some of these days are 20-hour days, answering questions, helping people, doing our job. The greatest thing about America is that we are a great country of ingenuity. And what we will do is when faced with adversity, we will find a way to overcome that adversity, work through it, and get to a place where we can get our job done. And that's what we're doing.
I'm being told we have around 3 minutes left. I wanted to get to a couple questions quickly that are not related necessarily to the coronavirus, but it's stuff on people's minds. Recently in Hamilton County, some devastating storms. I saw you out there, I believe, the next day, surveying the damage, talking to the folks, victims of these terrible storms. How are people doing in Hamilton County that were victims of this storm?
I'm so glad you asked that. Chad, as you know, I represent 11 wonderful East Tennessee counties. I love them all, from Hamilton County to Anderson and Roane here in the middle, all the way up to Scott County in the north. Easter is probably one of, if not my favorite holidays. On Easter evening, Hamilton County, Bradley County, and Polk County were hit with devastating tornadoes. We had fatalities, but we had neighborhood after neighborhood, particularly on the eastern side of Chattanooga and going into Bradley County, just totally wiped out. When I was out there the next day talking with homeowners, many of whom their home was entirely gone, very sad. I was on the phone the next day. As you know, my subcommittee funds FEMA. Director Gaynor was right on the spot, knew that we needed PPE equipment to get in, got it in the next day, so our frontline workers were safe getting in to help people who are in distress. Our community came together, but we're looking at literally millions and millions of dollars worth of damage. Fortunately, again, President Trump stepped up, has signed all of the relief bills so that FEMA can provide not only individual but county relief to our affected counties. But it is very sad to see these beautiful subdivisions just totally demolished.
And we have probably around a minute left. I wanted to ask you something else in the headlines. Our country made such breakthroughs, President Trump's leadership on diplomacy with North Korea. Yeah. Do we have any idea what's going on there as far as the leadership of Kim Jong-un? Is he alive or dead? Do we have any idea?
We don't know that for sure. What we do know is that he did have some type of an illness, some type of a malady, and was treated for that. We also know, and this is the big question that we have to ask now and in the future, if he were no longer the leader, for whatever reason, in North Korea, what will his successor look like? And will that be his sister? Will it be somebody from a rival political faction? We don't know. Why is that important? The fact that we, and this was a national failure on the part of our country and the world, to allow North Korea to develop sophisticated nuclear weapons, and that is not good. We should have never allowed them to get to that point. That's why we have to say no to Iran or any of these other rogue nations that would get there. The reality is North Korea is a nuclear power. They do have nuclear weapons, and that means we need to try to get some degree of political stability. We have to watch that. President Trump, once again, has done an outstanding job. He formed somewhat of what I would call a détente with the North Korean leader. Obviously, you can't be best friends with a communist dictator, but you can at least open the lines of communication and avoid a situation where there could be overt hostilities.
And I'm actually being told we have a few more minutes, which is great news for our viewers. You can get a couple more questions in.
Sure.
Getting back, this is something I wanted to ask in our coronavirus blog, but now that we have the time, you're known as a fiscal conservative. So many of the folks that vote for you also consider themselves fiscally conservative. What would you say to your constituents that are seeing this debt pile up, to massive numbers? This is something we had no choice in, I guess.
It's another great question. Prior to the coronavirus pandemic and crisis, healthcare and economically, we were 23 trillion, and that's with a T.
Many days the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help.